Okay, everyone. If you can hear my voice, if you stepped away from the screen, we're going to go ahead and get started to make sure we can start and end on time today. But we're so excited to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. I've not had the privilege of meeting. My name is Will Brummett. My pronouns are he and him. And I have the absolute joy of getting to serve as the Director of Student Engagement at Campus Compact. Today, I'm really excited for this webinar and for our time together because one of the major themes that came from our Student Design Fellows vision, which was our 2-year student-led strategic plan, one of the major themes was we need to do a better job of understanding the entryways that students actually have into civic and community engagement. And to understand the entryways or the better ways we can connect with these incoming students on our campuses and asking what are the things they want to do or get involved with civic engagement, we have to sort of start well before college. And that includes particularly engaging our middle school and high school civic leaders and young leaders. And so when we were thinking about this as a theme and we were looking for partners to engage with, there are a number of coalitions out there doing incredible work in this space. But I was connected with an incredible partner who we're featuring today, Christine Sturgeon, who is actually the CEO of InnerView. An interview, for those who are not familiar with it, is sort of a digital platform that allows high school students, middle school students, and even college students, but predominantly high school students, to not only capture the service or impact they're doing, but to challenge themselves at various ways to get involved and to make improvement in their local and global communities, and also to connect with one another and to find other students who are passionate in the same issue areas around the same type of global goals that they're passionate about as well. And one of the cool things about InnerView and what Christine does specifically is each year they actually survey thousands of high school students who are using it on their platform. And every quarter they ask students about various civic issues they care about, their attitudes towards various social issues or upcoming major events. And we partnered with them this year to actually ask them some questions around what are they looking for after graduation when they're considering going to college or going into the workforce. What are things they're looking for in making their decision about where they actually go? How does their civic engagement experience tie into that, and what are the things you're looking for? So InnerView has done recently their latest interview report, and with a lot of insights that Christine's going to get into today. But we're really excited and honored to invite Christine and the InnerView team to our platform today because we really think that their information, they really have the pulse of what the next generation or the incoming students are really looking for from our centers, from our campuses, from our communities, and we couldn't be more excited to invite them. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it on to Christine to come and share a little bit about InnerView and their great research. So, Christine, take it
Thank you,
away.
Will. And Will, can you give me a nod if my voice is coming across?
You're
Super.
great. You're good to go.
All right. Well, thank you all for committing some time to share thoughts and to learn little more about InnerView, but importantly, about this next generation, as Will has highlighted. We're so grateful to Campus Compact and you, part of this very valuable network, here to inspire, guide, and help these individuals on this fascinating trajectory. You will find that I speak very, very quickly. So I apologize for that in advance. It's very much so a testament to how much I am energized by the work that we do and inspired by the students and what they do day to day. The session today is going to be pretty rapid. It's very data driven, just as Will just discussed. We have millions of data points coming from these students. So whether those are activities and actions or hours and impact and thoughts and perspectives, we work really hard to dial up that voice. So we will make sure at the end of this session and throughout the session, Will is going to share a few links. These are all resources that will be available to you for the content that we have covered today. If it is advantageous to your programming, the way you're thinking about things, how you want to shape things, or where you might want to extend this information. We develop these briefs as well as these summaries and reports so that those who do engage with this network have an idea of what they are thinking about, what is going on in their day-to-day lives. And then, very much so, I want you to know that we are here as a collaboration partner. So, just as Will said, we do focus predominantly on high school. 14 to 24 is kind of the age range that we speak about. We don't kick people out of our network by any means. However, we do love finding soft landing places, such as Campus Compact organizations, to embrace these students after we've just spent 1 to 4 years with them. You'll see this quick screen grab because I do want you to have an idea as to what it looks like and how we do work with those students. So we have to start with our why. We are focused, as we said, 14 to 24, because we know that is the biggest impact we can make. So when I say we, InnerView just as Will represented us, we are a platform and a technology. We understand how to mobilize students, how to put information in front of them, and we connect with subject matter experts in a variety of areas so that they can then connect with our students, whether that is programming or otherwise. We look at developing skills, so aligning that interest and the purpose itself. Expertise, we make sure that we are looking at those connections also from collaboration and discussion. We want to put the students in control. And everything you see and the decisions that we make are all about a direct to student model. Yes, we work with high schools, we work with facilitators, we work with advisors, nonprofits, many people. However, the number one place we make decisions is to make sure that we're supporting that student. And you can see here, we want them to discover, we want them to capture their journey as they get involved civically and otherwise. And we believe that the best way that we can thank them for what they're doing is to help celebrate and help them understand the impact that their skills, their talents, and their efforts are making. And so, as we do that with a simple device, right? Dynamic tools that allow us to harness and look at this information, we then also give them or gift them a service resume that actually gives them credentials. Why am I sharing this? Because all of the data that we're going to talk about has come in through a digital fashion. So, I want you to understand what that engagement looks like, because it's also something you can tap into if you work with us or our students. So again, it's simple. It looks and feels like tools that they already know. Nobody needs to be trained on something like this. We want to fit into their lifestyle and not disrupt what they are doing. But we also want to make sure that we've got those critical pieces for mental recall, right? So, oh my gosh, I remember that we're standing in the shade because it's 104 and we're in Alabama, right? But it was all worth it when we built that house across that week over spring break. So everything that students capture, it has a place, it has a story, it has an emotion, which means it's a really light reflection that is just captured at that point in time, and they can always come back and do more with that. We want them to be able to capture and curate just like they do with every other facet of their life. So, how do we help amplify what they have done, help remind them of all the good they have done, and connect them to the bigger picture so that they remember that as they go out and they volunteer at that local elementary, that's also adding to Global Goal 4, quality education. So we do tie every action and interaction with an issue, and the nomenclature or the language that we are using are the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals targets for 2030. The digital resume that is automatically built for the students is owned by the student. It moves with them. So if their family needs to move from Virginia to Tennessee or vice versa, then they can pick that up and take that directly with them. And it just shows a school location change. So again, this is a testament to what they have done, what they have chosen to explore, where they have invested. And you'll see it's not just volunteering. It's what have you done with from a leadership perspective? Are the places that you are demonstrating impact aligned with what you've told us your primary interests are? That helps my team and our collaborative partners to understand where do we have gaps? Where are students seeking opportunities to get involved in things they care about? And how does that align with what is placed in front of them? So this is what an interaction looks like for a student on InnerView. This is not faculty or other parents or anything like that adding things for students. This is a student deliberately carving out time, taking an action for something they care about, and then adding that to a collection of artifacts, if you will, of things that they are proud of. So if we do this right, we focus on these students, everybody else benefits. So we can work with partners like Campus Compact, with committed organizations who have programs to help students, whether that is leading and guiding them on future career paths, or whether they're local and national nonprofits in need of service and actual skills in helping out their local communities. We do know there's clubs, advisors, so many people that can tap into to help celebrate, elevate, and also extend the work of these students. So as I said, if we focus on these students well, we can connect with that ecosystem. So please, I want you all to hear, we are collaborators. We want to make sure that our information is relevant. We want it to be very accurate as well as active. So we want to make sure that we're pumping out these insights to anyone working with these students, because we know the pace of change is just accelerating and we all have some big work ahead of us to create a better world. When you hear people from InnerView talk about impact, we are talking about the last 12 months of impact. And that's really important to us because it has to do with what is the pulse, but also how are we mobilizing people or what is available to individuals. You will see here these numbers. So 2 million service hours, that was last school year. I can tell you we are knocking it out of the park. By we, I'm bragging about the students, not us. I say that because on October 21st, we have already for this school year seen 550,000 impact hours from students. So we'll see that number climb very rapidly this year. I'm delighted that across this activity, and again, those are individual activities students have added to their service impact resume. So we measure hours because hours are a standard unit, right? It gives us something that we can keep consistent across all platforms. People can still start to, get into what is leadership versus a first-time volunteer, if you will. As I said, every single global goal issue is represented and many, many opportunities for students to discover, both in community opportunities as well as at home. I'm going into a little bit of detail here because you'll see how that kind of plays out. So what do 2 million hours look like? We ask students to add photos, use their photos and their demonstrations of what it looks like to work in these areas to inspire others to action. So whether it is you want to look at these beautiful faces, and I tell you, I have the best job ever being able to showcase these talents in the impact areas, or if you want to dive deep into our eye chart. So many, many things available, and they're all available to you. So as Will said, our annual insight report is available. Will's going to drop that in the link. This gets down and dirty. How many hours are going into each of the different areas or issue areas? On average, how much time do they spend there? How many people come back versus just coming and doing something casually? So whether you are representing specific areas, specific industries, or you're looking at roles, right? Leadership, advocacy, et cetera, you'll find great detail. And as I said, not only for this past year, but there are several areas that we look at trends over the last 5 years, et cetera, et cetera. So as much as I'd love to go into that for the rest of this session, those are available, and I'm happy to kind of dive deep with anyone who is interested in those topics. But all of this impacts the next story, right? So as I said, we really focus on that high school age, and we do that because we know there are such great institutions and coalitions that are able to embrace these students. The first thing you're wondering is, okay, so do these interview students even, are they planning to go to higher ed? So I'm going to start pulling in some data now, both from the report, but predominantly from our impact, our next gen insights, and I'll explain those here briefly. So of those students, 73% are currently, I'm sorry, can't read that number. 93% are currently planning to continue with higher education, a few directly into the workforce, and some directly into the military. You can see the audiences. So those students predominantly are attending public schools. That is by design on our part. We, as InnerView, are very interested in offering the most equitable and accessible platforms and programs to students. We make sure that at least 80% of our students are coming from public schools. Private schools are fantastic. They typically have better resources to embrace that environment. So we want to make sure that everyone has access. And delighted that 40% of those students are Title I. So again, just trying to make sure that students can invest in the areas in which they are most interested. And you can see the locales as well. Now, their interests actually are pretty darn important, aren't they? If that we truly want to engage them. And engagement is not how many people showed up for our event, but how many people are taking action, how many people are going further. And you can see some consistency as far as how our students are rating the top or the most important issue. And this is most recent, as you can see here by state. SDG 3, for those of you not familiar with the numbers, is good health and well-being. The next on that chart is no poverty. We've seen an increase of interest in no poverty since COVID. Very much so, an increase. So good health and well-being, SDG 3 and 4, quality education, are typically always in the top 5, as well as zero hunger. We can go into any of those offline if anyone is interested in specific issues, but just a quick glimpse as to how things change with geography and what's going on. The dynamics of these students. So they have a full schedule. Um, so you can see here, how are they filling their time? And we lead into this because this also has to do with, do they still have time to volunteer? Why are they making time to get involved in causes and in their communities? So you can see some of the things that they are doing. And then how does that change as they are moving through high school? Because, of course, that is a progressive series as well, right? Those freshmen are still just kind of getting acclimated into a new environment. And you can see that these are pretty consistent. Our seniors are typically, by the end of the school year, they end up making up anywhere between 30 and 36% year over year of our seniors, which means we are always cultivating that next generation because we're bringing them through. I want to make sure I do not forget to say this, especially higher ed. Think about those freshmen and sophomore. It is never too early to talk to them about what you do, what you believe in, what opportunities there are for connections and changing the world specific to them. And we'll highlight that a little bit later. Um, and then when we talk about causes specifically, so sure, I could just go get involved in spattering things because Will asks me to something, Natalie invites me to something, and let's say that Amy does as well. But how much of that is going directly into the issues that they care the most about? So 44% of our students are investing almost a full workday, right? 8 to 16 hours in a single cause. Again, these are all across a 12-month cycle, all of these numbers here, not over a lifetime. And 15% are investing almost a full week. You'll see just how wide range that is when we look at our leaders across those. So again, this is more about how do I right size if I am looking for a program and how that overlays across a fall term or even across welcome week. What am I asking them to do? Who are they going to do it with? And what kind of environments are they most comfortable in? So many of us that work with youth, we talk about meeting students where they are. At InnerView, we very much so want to do exactly that. And that helps us when we look at these millions of activities, millions of hours, and all of these students across a continuum so that we understand what are they seeking? What can we help connect them to so that there's a value-based relationship? And these students are very savvy. They understand that we collectively, our ecosystem, I'm putting all you in there with me, we are asking them for their most precious assets, their time, their talent, and their passion or their personal brand. So way over here on the left, you will find the curious is what we call them. Again, this is our continuum. And I think you'll be able to think of either your volunteers, your groups, your clubs, maybe even your boards. How do they all kind of span across your own continuum? These curious volunteers, they're just getting started. They're seeking some sort of connection and they want personal experiences. So again, think of Welcome Week, think of pre-Welcome Week, right? How are you sharing messages with them about what you can do from these opportunities to connect, because all of these students are very aligned on purpose and compassion and connection. Typically, they have some sort of cause awareness, but a lot of times they are just going along because it's social, it's fun, and they're doing it with friends. Those who are exploring are getting that to that next stage up. So yes, they are interested to align, but they would really like it to have to do with something that they are interested in as well. And all of this, put this in the context of, remember how many of them are tutoring. They have part-time jobs, they have sports. So there's so many things urging and asking for their time and attention. Starting at this casual age, this is where we're starting to see people who actually join groups and clubs. Now, some of the joiners are over here, and then we also know there are different roles that all kinds of people play. This audience really interests us quite a bit because they definitely have a declared interest in whether that is a group, whether it is an activity, a skill set, or an issue, but they also want to know that they are plugging a gap. They don't want to just show up. They want to know that what they are doing, what they are choosing at 8 p.m. is going to matter. So even language, and we share these kind of resources even with our student leaders. We want them to realize, you know what, if you just tell everybody, hey, don't forget, we've got that swap meet on Saturday, please show up, it's a very different message than we need 3 more people to really be that welcome committee at the swap meet. I need 2 people to do this. Those casual people, they are going to raise their hand, they're going to be there, they're reliable, and they are accessible. Committed, these people are very intentional. They are seeking progress and they want to seek impact. So they want to know at that swap meet how many people attended, how many resources were swapped across, how many of them were new, do we have new committee members, et cetera, et cetera. They are starting to really develop and they want to opt into more and more leadership opportunities. And then these leaders, gosh, these kids, I tell you, all of them are impressive, and some of them will just absolutely blow you away with their talents. And they are passionate, they are capable of mobilizing, they know it, and they are very confident in their voice and their demonstrations. When I say we've got data behind everything, so you'll see here, I'm listing the US kind of aggregate. We have these dialed up by public versus private, state by state, whatever it is you're interested in. If these are specific to you, please let us know. But aren't they fascinating? I mean, how refreshing. Can you believe that 6% of my audience here is investing more than 130 hours a year into making the world a better place? And this is why it is so important for us to make sure that opportunities, and by us, once again, what are you asking your students to do? If you have a student that is very committed to your work, they can only sit at that front desk so many times to be overly motivated. Ask them to do more. They are willing to do it. When you're planning that big social event at the beginning of the year, do you really want to just do a 1 hour event? Because guess what? On average, you're going to get somewhere between 4 and 8 hours out of those students. Let's put them to work. That's what they plan to do. They're showing up for a reason. So again, just some data that is going to help you as you start to think about things. So curious, guess what? They want the event to be social, right? They're not signing up to show up to a lecture. They want it to be social. They want it to be good. And there's some of them that are still either unable, because again, we're talking about high schoolers, unable to control their own destiny as travel requirements, things like that, or schedule commitments, but they still want to get involved. So on-demand activities as well as workshops, as well as in-home kind of projects and programs. This also goes the same for shy students as well as students with special needs. So we saw a great interest level, especially during COVID, but that continues, of students with special needs that are able and interested in also being very involved in civic engagement. So please, please look out for those opportunities. I said earlier, explorers really want to know what mattered. So when we're sending those thank yous back to remind them what that overall impact was. And here, these casual students, they're ready to start helping you fill lots of holes, right? Program staffing, doing outreach. They want to start to develop additional skills and actually get into the operations of it, because they are trying to figure out what do they want to develop and are there additional commitments. This committed group is a lot of fun because we all need advocacy and testimonials. They are so spirited. They're going to find it. They're going to be authentic about it. They will connect with others. They are willing to lead your projects and they are starting to develop their networks and connections. So please give them opportunities to do so. And then, as we know over here, these leaders, they are already both cause and community leaders. Do not devalue their changing perspective on what leadership is. And we'll talk about that here shortly. So does any of this matter, right? Like I'm making all these eye charts and we have scads of data coming in. We're excited to say that over the years, you can see that it's shifting. So we're getting more and more students involved in these items over here to the right-hand side, right? So we're shifting to these higher order kind of engagement levels with communities and causes, because we very much so want to help them on the paths of where they want to go. So how do we build flexible frameworks and work with the relevant partners that can make that possible? Now, not everybody wants to be over here, and that's completely okay. We just want to make sure that we're meeting them with things that make sense. So within InnerView, we can then overlay different things that students can do. So some students are interested in full-on workshops. Other students just want to sign up for a small activity or maybe something, as we said, that's a little more social, say a color run or something like that. You'll see this fancy little wheel here next to panels and surveys. We are trying to make sure that our students understand the value of their voice. We do this not only in how they capture and reflect, how we help them tell that story of their impact, but also we are training them to participate in panels, in surveys. And then you can see even some of them in youth advisors and leadership roles. The next portion of the discussion, I'm going to share two different briefs we're making available. As Will said, we were delighted to work with Campus Compact in talking about next. But what I first want to dive into is another one that we ran with the same set of students about connection, because first, those relationships are a lot of the reason that students are getting involved. And then the next, the follow on would be what that means as they're projecting for next. So three key themes in our brief on connection. So again, this is a survey done of more than 1,000 students. Pardon me. And we wanted them to reflect on connections that both inspire and inform. You'll see three key takeaways here. And very much so, families are part of this conversation. So, friendship, families, mentors. We have found that, so if I step back and look just a few years ago, people were saying their close circle of friends were 10 to 15, right? That has changed. And when I say people, again, I'm talking about high school students. Now, 60% are saying that their close friends is a small cohort, 1 to 3 people, and that these are just people that they are connected with at every level. They expect honesty, loyalty, kindness, listening, but their values are very much so at the core of those relationships. And this one is really beautiful. You know, you hear so much about influencers. We're smacked with them all over social media. But when it comes to true connection and mobilizing and sharing thoughts and getting things done, purposeful conversations amongst trusted people, they very much so say, yeah, influence needs to go both ways. This is not just I'm pushing my thoughts and beliefs on you, but this is an exchange. I want to hear about yours, Will, and I would like you to also listen to mine. I love that 51%, and again, these are high schoolers, are already asking a friend to come with them and support a cause. So also keep that in mind, that human connection. And I really, really, we'll talk about this whole aspirational model of that college student. You guys have jewels in your network that these high school students would love to connect with in any way. And so this was about a 25 question overall survey on connections, and we're just bringing forward pieces of it. And as I said, there'll be a brief made available to you, but very much so we were talking about like, where do you want to strengthen? And very much so, there are so many opportunities for organizations in higher ed to get information and become trusted sources. People who are not just telling them junior and senior year, but instead sharing information, helping them build their awareness and join in a conversation or a controlled map of learning, right? They are all about kind of devising their own path to things. And they will tell you exactly what they're looking for as far as overall categories. They are just very interested in how do we make those happen. So, number two, only to friends. And then you can see some of the others in here. So, belonging and very tight, very trusted circles. Trust is a word that we hear over and over from students. Family mentors and influence. So this is also fascinating because, um, so you know, we people my age refer to COVID like it was just yesterday. To the graduating high school student, they were in middle school, 6th grade, 7th grade. So keep that in mind because I think that's a lot of what we're seeing in these smaller, intimate circles, 1 to 3 people, but also this influence of family. 60% talk to their family about personal matters on a weekly basis. Moms were dialed up as the most influential, but parents as a whole, but moms were strikingly high. And, you know, if you do think of that, I mean, let's all go back in time. What were our households like when we were confined at home working remotely, right? The high school students we could send them to the grocery, they could still go help. And in fact, we saw beautiful mobilization via InnerView where we got to see just how uh, hyper local everything got, looking after your neighbor, looking after delivering food, or you know, what are those networks? But think about what that would have meant for that 6th grader or 7th grader, right? Mom's at work but she's in the same room, and same for dad, right? And then they're all of it's a very confined, controlled kind of relationship, and we're seeing that spill across. Um, so when we asked them, since they told us that families were so high, we asked them, you know, what areas do they feel supported by their family? And this is all healthy. This is beautiful, right? Like we can't say any of this is bad. These are productive family connections. And again, I also want this caveat in here. These are interview students. So these are students who have at least all taken one action for others, right? So this is not a blanket demographic, but these are most likely the students that will be knocking on university doors. So issues they believe in is the one place that they are seeking most for outside influence because they may not agree or they may be trying to influence their family. Um, and in fact, we had this fabulous question in there of, how often are you trying to influence your family and friends? And literally the scale was never to nonstop. And almost everybody was 2 to 5. So, but again, issues you believe in, and how are they influencing those patterns? You can see the extended information there as well. And then if we just very quickly wrap up on connection, and again, connection is such a fabulous outcome and one of the first things that students really get sparked by when they get civically engaged, right? I'm working with people that may not look or sound like me. I'm helping someone who I've never met before. The emotion behind that, the connection back to your community and your civic engagement. Um, and so many times, this word leadership is being used. And internally, we have decided we've got to figure out different, we want to work with our students to figure out different words, because leadership to all of us is not necessarily translating to the same things that students consider leadership, which is all good. We just have to listen, adapt, learn, and make sure that we have these organized. So that we are talking about the same things, because you can see right here, they're passionate. They want to help. They want to grow. And leadership to them is about action. It's about not being passive. It's not ignoring things, which is fascinating, right? And how are they doing this most often? They're joining groups and clubs. So beyond that 1 to 3 very close friends, you'll see that how important are school clubs, groups, and activities in helping you build connections. Only 2%, well, 3%, sorry, we should round that up, say no, not at all. And my goodness, look again, think of that time that they are still investing in community impact when on average, they are a member of 4.5 clubs across a 12-month cycle. You can see only 2% were in absolutely no clubs, and 6% are in 10 or more groups or clubs. So as they have joined these, we ask them, what's your number one reason for doing this? And guess what? Number two, so developing skills and talents makes perfect sense, also influences your world, but preparing for college and the career. So very much so. Where are those instances where we can take messages, we can take programs, we can drop in aspirational leaders to show what things are like, to help them understand what groups and clubs are available on campus, because they're already finding that as a sense of community, and a community that is segmented to different areas of life that are important to them. So how do we propose and showcase all the fabulous ways that students can get involved in higher education? And then finally, the last one here on connection. So very much so the first year on InnerView, remember we saw all those hours and we saw them by classification of engagement types, but a first year student on average is investing 27 hours. You can see that whether that is aligning with their interests, whether that is aligning them with others, and direct actions of value or that feel rewarding, their second year, they've invested 46% more time. And again, tying back, what does connection matter? 52% of these students are volunteering with or for a club or a group. And again, leadership is not a position, it is a practice. And there is a very real struggle, which was, kind of voiced from our students, which is, hey, if I'm shy, it takes a little bit for me to get comfortable and to participate. So again, just your students, you're recruiting them, right? Just like we're recruiting them, that we have lots of great causes we want them to engage with. We need to align them appropriately and look at the overall life cycle. And voila, what do we guess? So what type of support or guidance are they wish they had more of? First is emotional support and understanding. We all are very aware of many of the challenges across the nation there. For this audience, I just want to highlight again, career and college guidance. What are those options that are available? And one of the things I do want to give a promotion to here is we do a lot of webinars with students, workshops with students. Some of them are asynchronous, some of them are live. And most of them we cap at about 40 just because we want the students to be able to talk, right? We want them to raise their hand and ask the questions, and then we record them and other people can watch them on demand later. We found such a great consistency in that so much of the Q&A was, so we always try to get a mix of presenters. If we can find a collegiate presenter, it's golden, right? Because that is that aspirational role model to all of these high school students. What is college like life? Even life like, even if you have a sibling in college, you want to hear from somebody else because your brother or sister can't possibly be that cool. Um, and I have to tell you, the Q&A, so much of it was just questions about how did you do this? How did you get there? What does day to day look like? I'm under so much pressure for this. They need people to talk to that, again, are aspirational role models. They are forming these connections, and they feel that that is a level of trust and honesty that is coming from someone just that, few years older. So think about making those students available. If you are all interested, we have scads of students that are very interested in what that life is like, from volunteerism, from leadership, from getting involved, all kinds of things. So this particular brief on connections, if you'd like to learn more, Will's got that to share in the chat. I'm going to hit a few things on what they had to say about what they expect for next as well. So what we define as next is their perspective on the future. And these students, as you can see, this is why I say, please, please consider the freshmen, consider those sophomores, because by the time they are juniors and seniors, many of those things, not only do you know the big wheel is already churning, but they've already started to develop their preferences and their understanding of what is available and where there may or may not be a fit. So as we said earlier, 92% plan on higher education or training of some sort. Many, 68% are concerned, right? So they're pragmatic and they're purposeful. They very much so are concerned about financial stability. These next two items I think are wonderful. Please make sure students are aware of all the fabulous pathways, whether those are work study, whether they're grants, whether it is roles, scholarships, things tied to service learning. So 31% said in order to take on this next step, they actually need financial help. We also have all the numbers in there of who actually was aware that there were funding sources that could come through community engagement or those roles. 53%, now that they know that those sources could be available, said yes, that would absolutely help them select which university. So yes, pragmatic that they're worried about the finances, but again, remember, they're seeking connection, they're seeking values. So anyone with civic engagement programs is actually a fabulous thing to showcase to these students. And as you can see here, a wide majority of them, right here, we've got 65% of them are already, planning 4 to 6 years ahead. So please, please, it is never too early to share all the bright, shiny things that you offer. And then what motivates these students most about their job or their career? So these, as we've said, purpose driven. They want to not only have a stable role, but they also want to make sure that what they are personally doing is going to positively impact the world. And they're also very interested in what their organization is doing for the world. They they are better read, better informed, and can access more information than any other individual at this point in time in their life. So very much so, they know that the future is uncertain. And we all know that in some way it is smacking them in the face every single day. So what they are choosing, um, you'll see that they're savvy enough to know that they realize their human skills, their human agility matters. They are able to pick up things quickly. They have had to learn things in new ways from a wide range of things. So they have a great amount of confidence in their capacity to learn. However, they also realize that communication is going to be important. 97% want to invest in their own leadership after high school. So fascinating things there, right? Like they know that they can't just stay still. It is all about humans and how we interact. They do realize that they need to, solve those things, right? Critical thinking and problem solving are still important, but communication and collaboration really top the charts as far as what they believe they need to be prepared for and what they're seeking when they are looking at new pathways and avenues, and whether that is through clubs and groups or whether that is through formal study. And then wrapping up, again, just briefly touching on some of these things with some high level bullets, perceptions and realities. So they know that as they step very bravely into this new arena that they are going to have to work with multi-generational parties and surrounded by older peers and colleagues. And as they do this, there are perceptions that they know are out there about their generation. Um, and very much so, they are well aware that there are headlines out there saying that they are immature, that they are lazy. These students in particular, the students that are civically minded, they find that all offensive, of course. They very much so see themselves as hardworking, responsible, and compassionate. And quite frankly, they say that they demand these top values, both out of the organizations in which where they go to study, as well as the organizations where they hope to get a job. So they values are top of mind for them, and how those connections, those human connections, how we get things done, actually continue to morph and shape things. Um, and then, this is interesting as well because they all say they want access to more things to discover and explore careers, which makes perfect sense, right? If you say you want to be a doctor, have you stepped into a hospital before, right? Have you, and this idea of how can we help unlock some civic engagement kind of opportunities that have to do with career readiness or at least career exposure, right? 35%, we're thrilled. We have, been able to get to 35% that said yes, they have volunteered in the areas that they'd like to identify a potential career. But you'll see that there's a host in there that say that either they don't know how to find that or they've never even thought about that. So very few are not interested at all. And then you'll see, they want to know that what they're doing matters. And this whole idea of I don't need a title to lead, right? So leadership, again, is all about action. And what can we do in how we engage with others? So, adults need to listen, not just tell us what to do. So that brief is available as well. I'll go ahead and wrap this up, but I would be just amiss if I did not thank all the champions of change who offer different pathways for students to explore, engage, manage, and develop skills, as well as be celebrated in their community for the work that they are already doing. So very grateful for these organizations because that is what enables us to make sure that InnerView continues to be a free resource for all high schools, all students. So if you are interested in changing the world, is a safe place for you to do that and meet other cohorts and collaborators along the way. Also, unfortunately, the Presidential Volunteer Service Awards are currently on pause. We're hopeful that's all going to change. Whether it does or does not, we have some states who have stepped up. Serve Connecticut, Michigan, and Serve Ohio all offer student impact awards. We also partner with the United Nations Association, who has national awards for those who are civically minded and have demonstrated changing the world in their communities. So free awards programs that are there, please, if you have people searching for how do you recognize students, see me. Will can direct you to me. I've got my email plastered all over this deck. But we want to make sure that the students realize that there are plenty of people to elevate and celebrate their good work. And we are delighted to have that opportunity to do so. So everything that we do is about engagement, impact, and insights. This was a quick whirlwind tour of a few of those views. Please feel free to access the information, share with others. It is a text-heavy deck, so that if there are pieces and morsels in there that you would like to share with others, pretty much the details are in there if you would like to reuse and repurpose. Again, the whole point of us doing this is to share with others and make sure that you have a direct view on how to motivate and continue to develop, guide, and help these students grow, because they're not future leaders. They are changing the world today. And it is just such a fabulous position for us to be in, to work with partners and subject matter experts in order to make those opportunities a reality. So thank you all for giving up your time to share thoughts with us today. I know Will's going to open it up for a little Q&A. I do realize every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to 100 other things begging for your attention. So very grateful that you are here and that you have chosen a profession to motivate and work with and guide the students through these critical ages of their development. So thank
Awesome.
you, and feel free to contact me in any way.
Thanks, Christine. That was great. It's so much great data. And if you're like me, and your first time I met Christine, I was like, wait, hold on, wait. With that, there's so much data there. Like it's been like hours diving into it. And I do hope you all will take the time to look at the briefs. The briefs are really nice. They're about 3 to 5 pages tops. And the Insight Report is a really beautiful job. It's really intentionally designed to sort of help show you a variety of impacts that Christine mentioned. Okay, Christine, a couple of questions have come into the chat throughout. So a couple are very just sort of practical. The first question was, does your platform cost anything for students to sign up on? And do they have to sign up through their school or can they just sign up independently?
Thank you.
And so I will let you answer that one first.
I love this question. Absolutely no cost to any student at any time. And all of our programs are also without cost. So any student can sign up either with a school email or their personal email. And it is accessible, so anyone can go to my.interview.org. And when I say anyone, I mean those students 14 and above. We do have humans who manage our community. If they see someone that looks like me poking around, we will let them know that this is not a platform for adults. There are plenty of platforms out there for giving and for aligning with volunteer needs. Um, all of our volunteer opportunities are specifically aligned for and appropriate for students. So we do a whole round there. When it comes to schools, all high schools also have free tools. Local nonprofits have tools that they can use to promote and post. If it is a national nonprofit, there are modest fees. As you can imagine, there's data impacts things. We try to take on the bulky things that no one has the additional resources to do, right? Reporting, metrics, social media graphics, images, impact stats, the things that will hopefully help all of you raise more money and serve more students.
Awesome. And from someone asked too, Christine, like, is it an app like on the phone, which I think it is? And then also, how many total students? I think you hit on this briefly, but how many total students are using the platform as of like this latest last year?
Forgive me for this one, guys. We do not publicly disclose that. And we do
Okay,
that by design because we talk about impact.
got it.
So we very clearly shared there are 515,000
And
impact activities over the last 12 months. That was 2 million service hours. We want students also conversing in that way.
love that. I
Um,
love that.
so if we need to get specific with somebody, we can, but we really try to publicize what is changing the world.
I love that. And then someone asked Christine too, from the school's perspective or the nonprofit's perspective, how is the platform managed by them? Do they directly upload opportunities for themselves? Like, do they upload opportunities, or do you all find the opportunities? And how do people go about if an organization wants to upload opportunities to connect with these students? How would they do that?
Any 501(c)(3) can sign up to be reviewed. So we need to make sure that they are safe, right? We are sending high school students to these organizations. Our team, our community team does make sure that they are a verified 501(c)(3) and do a few other things. After that point, then we will share resources for them to go through basically self-paced training, but you don't really need the training. It's just posting a few opportunities, and that will then be automatically promoted to students within a pardon me, 40-mile radius of your location. If you are looking for national opportunities, that is something that, as I said, national nonprofits and opportunities require a partnership with us. And those can either be self-managed or we facilitate those for many, many partners.
Got it. Awesome. And assuming if a nonprofit's interested, the best way is just reach out to you to talk about what would the rate be based on their size and other location and things. Okay. Awesome. So one person asked too, Christine, could you reiterate that stat you mentioned earlier around how students are viewing the importance of like higher institutions' commitment to community service, or how important it is that students are looking for people committed to doing social good in the next step. So in that last survey, that sort of last insight, I forget what the exact stat maybe was, or students are looking forward to making a positive difference. But what was the stat that looks towards that we can sort of take back to our campus that says, hey, students are looking to do this. This is what they're looking for. What's next for after high school?
And so I think it's a myriad of lots of things, right? It's they are prioritizing value-based organizations. They are seeking connection, and all of them have like many layers in those
Yeah.
stats. We can, and it also has to do with what is their commitment to those things.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say download the brief, and I know that sounds really icky, but it has a lot to do with what are you seeking, right?
Yeah.
Are you looking to widen the funnel and get more students involved? across a wide span. Are you looking to develop the next generation leader in a certain industry? And that's why I say the fabulous part about having all this data is you can figure out what is the dial that does make the most sense for you. But very much so, they are looking for connection, right? They're going to a university and choosing a university for that specific thing. Yes, it is absolutely to become subject matter intelligent, right? To make sure that I actually have a command of this industry, or at least enough to get started in my career. But there are many ways to learn, and they know it. So actually investing in a relationship with the university and being part of something bigger is of key value to these students.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things I was also thinking about, Christine, that you sort of mentioned that I always sort of found surprising, but maybe I shouldn't be surprised given is it's how far in advance students are already thinking about what's next for them, and how
Right.
you talked about that continuum of the I forget the exact language you use, like the explorers versus like the sort of the casual volunteers, and I think oftentimes when we are getting to them as higher education professionals, we're obviously often interacting with them for the first time on campus, right, when they're coming in. But we also oftentimes, a lot of people on this call also work with high schools or work with nonprofits working with high school students. And we don't necessarily always think about talking with those students about actually maybe our university or higher education in general earlier on, or we only think it's something we should talk to them about junior or senior year. So if a person's on this call and they're curious about approaching Gen Alpha, who's now, I think, first years in high school, about sort of, putting in their ear of like, yeah, you can be involved in civic engagement in college and beyond. What would be some advice you do in terms of sort of getting in the door with those earlier students and how to like sort of put the bug in their ear without overwhelming them as they're beginning to sort of test the waters?
I think it's very much so about aligning with their interests, right? So whether that is future careers that they are interested in and those specializations that your campus has, but then anchoring it with that human component, right? Like, here are our values, and this is how we demonstrate them. Here's how we are involved. We not only are teaching the leading edge of healthcare, but let us show you what we are doing to impact those daily. And would you like to meet with or attend this webinar with, a junior who just started XYZ? Right? That curiosity, that human to human connection also just brings a reality to it, right? I can now all of a sudden see myself in that role, and I can see that I would belong. So imagine this is going to be a very intimidating big step for a lot of these students who are in a close friend group of 1 to 3 to now take a step on campus, right? I would say be proactive, be personal. Those are all things that we try to do over at Interview. We're always sending messages, right? Of thank you for what you have done. Here's another opportunity to do more. They have lived a life of gaming loops, right? Like, this is what you've done. This is why we appreciate it or why we recognize you, which is what they really want, right? How many times did we hear in there, listen to me, I want to be heard, I have taken actions. So here we go, right? Like, we see that you have done this. Thank you. And do you know you can do this? We would like to invite you. And that's a key thing, right? Everybody wants a sense of belonging. And when that is conveyed, even from the onset, that is how they're going to quickly dive in, because now they feel heard. They want to do more, and they are so eager to do more. They have ideas. Will you witness it day in and day out with your work with students and leaders? Their ideas are just going to blow you away. But that is how they're going to form these bonds that are so valuable to them, and then just deepen that engagement.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one of the things we talked about, I know Christine offline before this is one of the things that how often, students are not even aware that one of the avenues they can use to go to college outside of just general FAFSA or financial aid is federal
Right.
work study or community service scholarships, other things as well. Oftentimes, I think students think about maybe community service, community engagement is something I put on my resume to get into school, but then I don't really think about, oh, that could be something I actually could use for a career or actually for financial aid or other things. And so, what would be something in terms of what would you encourage us when we're trying to, the stat of the students who are very interested, like that would influence their college decision. I think it was like 60% or so if
Yeah.
they knew there's community engagement funding for
Right.
them. We are always fighting in our professions to ask for more funding for our centers or for scholarships and things. So if you were talking to a college president around why they should invest more money in financial aid based on community-based scholarships or something, what would you sort of tell them from your point of view as to like why that's worth the investment and the interest is there from the students?
Yeah, I love this question. So, uh, already students have demonstrated that that's how they find connection and belonging and purpose in their current lives. This allows them to bridge that in a very authentic way. They know that they are going to meet with like-minded individuals. And we all know on the other side, once they get involved like that, there's a stickiness. We're going to have a retention that's going to make, just a huge difference in year 2, year 3, because they are embedded in the community, they're embedded in the culture. They have now tied this also to, their personal values are aligned with that university, how they demonstrate, how they lead, how they teach, right? Work and play. It is just such a beautiful story of what you are bringing back to this student, right? And oh my gosh, you're also going to help me with the financial side, which scares a bejesus out of me, right? It's really it brings really an unlevel playing field over to that student and the family as they're making that decision, right? Because that's the other thing. I'm sending my student off. They're going to make a decision because they know they can get involved, right, in these things that they're already doing, and they're extending leadership, commitment, human agility, working with others. That's a confidence that you feel really good about as well. So I think it's a full circle win. But the president probably wants to hear most about how do we make sure that these students are coming back their sophomore year, right? And you're building that into the experience is fabulous.
I love that. No, that's great. And then the last question, Christine, just for our time is like, I think you and I've talked a lot about there's a lot of misperception out there, particularly for the next generation, as we are coming off the last bit of Gen Z, who's currently in high school, and then Gen Alpha, who's barreling right behind them as well. But just sort of, if you had to say like, what's the number one takeaway or a correcting a misperception of this is the group of students you all will be receiving in the next 2 years. How would you sort of, in one or two sentences, sort of classify this is the group of students we're getting and to be ready for?
They are action oriented, right? They are not going to wait to be invited if they don't if they're not seeing what they like, right? They are going to go to where they know they can influence things.
Mm,
So if doors are closed, that is not interesting to them. If people are listening, if people are sharing authentically, if they are building and developing together, they're going to develop faster, and these students already know it. So I would say this is a generation that has already started to change the world. They're going to continue to shape spaces in industries and relationships. And I can't wait.
awesome. Thanks so much, Christine. I really appreciate you. I think you've just really done a great job elevating not only the great work these students are currently doing as early as the age of 14, but even up through their young adult years, but then also really sort of helping provide data to some of the things I think we know intrinsically, but we always are looking for like, where's the actual data? Is this actually true? And I think you've done a really beautiful job lifting that, opening our eyes up to some other things. And I think you've given a lot of people a lot of stuff to chew on. So I'm going to put Christine's email in the chat just so everyone can also have it if you do want the contact. Again, the slide deck and the links shared will be shared out later for anyone who registered for this call. But we again wanted to sort of thank you so much, Christine. You've added such a great element to this and given us a lot to think about. And we're really, really just honored to work with you all and to partner with you and to lift up the great work that students are already doing. So thank you all so much if you're on today's call. We really appreciate you working with us to expand the entryways for all students to get involved. And we hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday. Thanks so much.